one of the things in this first part of the book, and of course I agree with the way you actually, it's very interesting the way you put the 6 areas together, because effectively they touch almost everything in technology. And we can go in a lot of different directions. Some people might touch spatial computing related with AI as a kind of element, or even areas related with healthcare and different areas. But of course, let's keep the narrative around the book. And one of the things that I like a lot is, I think you synthesized a lot of this information about this foundational technology in the first chapter, and as well, you went a bit further. So one of the areas that you guys mentioned in the book is a world rebooting. And I want to highlight this for people listening to us, because it's one thing, actually, I like a lot the way you put it, because it's one of the things I'm actually summarizing as well in my own research, is that if you look over the course of history, there were only small innovations that changed and transformed the Homo sapiens, or humanity, as we call it. And part of it was harnessing fire, which was, I think, around 400,000 years ago, something like that. The wheel, or the invention of the wheel, or at least adapting somehow the form of the wheel to transportation, a lot of different things. The astrolabe, okay, there was, of course, the compass for navigation. The asymmetric weaponry, and I like the way you put it as well, vogue and powder atom bomb, which of course is a much bigger, and of course we are in the year of Oppenheimer, so a lot of the film actually that highlights a lot of reflection around this. Then the printing press, of course, that is a key element, especially the paper and the printing press, which for me I think still is the biggest technology in the planet, special paper. And then harnessing energy, which we are from hydro to steam, and I'm using things from the book on the preface for people listening to us. Then the transistor, silicon chip, the internet, the smartphone, and the social media. So in this rebooting, and I think, of course, that comes the unsupervision or supervising. How can we look at this, and how you see this? Because in the end of the day, if you look at the world in the fifth society 5.0, or the fourth industrial revolution, all of this happened in the last 200 years, with the exception of fire and the wheel. And the astrolabe, of course, was a bit older, but in the end of the day, everything else that really created massive disruption was in the space of 200 years. And if you look at really velocity of technology, and velocity as well of human I would say ingenuity or human capacities is definitely the last 50 years or 30 years, especially with AI right now, taking to a completely different level. And then I'll take another question. So from this world rebooting, and I think it's the part here is that how can we look at this mastery by Homo sapiens, and I will quote a part of the book in the preface 9, to say we are undergoing an evolution of existing technologies that at their roots half a century ago vastly understates the exponential nature and magnitude of the changes. It is not simply the continuation of the Industrial Revolution, rather a cognitive revolution in information and computation, a variable explosion of artificial intelligence and frontier technologies. In fact, this switch from the end of the age of the Industrial Revolution to the start of the age of cognitive revolution could be seen as a third Promethean moment in the use of knowledge, the first being the printing press and the second industrial revolution. The difference this time is the precedent speed at which the change are occurring, and this pace will continue to accelerate. So this quote is, like I said, preface, page 9 in Roman. So from the beginning. So I would like, how do you summarize this for people listening to us, and especially in the context of, let's be very basic. I always say dumbifying, because effectively my challenge is that, of course, my channel is for people, I think, a bit more advanced, but nevertheless, all of us need to learn, including myself, and I'm very humble on this because the devil's on details.
Well, you summed it up brilliantly for a start. So I think that's very important. I mean, the crux of that statement is I found the word Industrial Revolution 4.0 to be mislabeling this. And I think if you mislabel it and make your analysis based on a false premise, then you're not going to get to the right answer. That's the crux of it. We call it, as you called it as well, a cognitive revolution. And I think that's really important. These technologies are replacing the way that we think. And that has not happened before. So the Industrial Revolution replaced the way that we worked physically, but that didn't change us as our thought process. It changed the way that we could work. And actually, the Industrial Revolution led most of humanity to use its cognitive abilities greater. So they moved out of the fields and into the factories, and out of the factories into office jobs. And that's been an enormously beneficial move for the whole of society. It's ensured that we have democracy. It's ensured that the economic wealth of the world has improved, the health, et cetera, because we needed the brain power. And that is really important. What is now happening is two things, which I think are equally, the first is less problematic, strangely, than the second. The first is that these technologies are being designed to replace our brain processes. So lawyers, OpenAI is actively working to replace coders. It's actively working to replace lawyers, not as a lawyer, not as a human, but as a job. So all I need to do is code better than a coder. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to be able to go to Burning Man. I don't need to be able to catch a ball. I don't need to be able to go and talk to my friends. I just need to code better. If I can code better, that means the coder doesn't have a job. If I can write contracts better, that means a lot of lawyers don't have their jobs. If I can file your taxes better and solve your financial issues better, those people are out of work. That is the first thing. The second thing is more problematic, I think. That is that what we've seen in social media is they are actually being used to change the way we think. And social media has done that to make us addicted to social media. So, we had Facebook, people became addicted to Facebook. They started using it. We had enormous depression. We had enormous loneliness. We had suicide rates rocket in the US and the Western world. TikTok is on a completely different level. When you see the number of hours that people watch TikTok and how the algorithm is there to make sure that we do not leave TikTok. I've heard the CEO of TikTok talk, and he says, well, we try and limit people. They don't. They want people on. That's what generates their ad revenue. The way you do that is by making people addicted, but also manipulating the way that their brain operates. It also allows those platforms to change the message. So it can slowly make us believe something that the designers of those systems, be they governments, be they entrepreneurs, or be they systems themselves. These systems are learning very quickly about us, and they can direct us to believe things that they want us to believe. And that is extremely dangerous. And that is why I call it a cognitive revolution. And that's why this book was written. This book was written to alert people, to everybody, that this is happening. And there are different types of people. There are people like you that have enormous understanding of a lot of these technologies, but may not piece everything together. There are people that when I worked in blockchain, when I worked in AI, these people are very siloed in their domain. They're not looking at what's going on outside their domain. They need to understand that. If you're working in CRISPR, do you understand what people are doing in AI? Do you understand what people are doing in quantum? Do you understand what people are doing in biocomputing? Do you understand how those all add together? If you're a politician, you need to start understanding this. I had a conversation with someone last night about regulation and how regulation is, and the law in the US is being very quickly drafted. And I think that's an error. I honestly think that the way they're going is wrong. It's going to happen. And I think that's furtherly problematic, which again is why the name unsupervised didn't come from us. It actually came from Wiley. Having read the book, they came up with, which I found even better. This is about supervision. Everybody needs to supervise. If you're a CEO of a company, you can supervise it. So I heard about a very large car manufacturer last night whose CEO was very worried. I know someone on the board of that car manufacturer. He was very worried because of the way that we implement it. He implements it within the organization. How does he do it that doesn't destroy his workforce, doesn't destroy what he's doing? I'm really pleased to hear that. That was a great thing. He said, I'm frightened of this, but he wasn't frightened for AGI. He was frightened for how he needs to implement it and can he do it responsibly. But a lot of people aren't thinking about that. If you are if you are a parent of children, like you mentioned your children when we were talking earlier, are you going to your school and saying, how are you managing the world that's coming? Teaching my kids about certain subjects now is not as relevant as how they're going to be trying to manage and navigate this world that's coming. If you are part of an underrepresented group, how are you working with other people in that underrepresented group to make sure that the foundations that you believe in are put in? Why I think this time is so important, and one of the reasons I wrote the book, is we're building the foundations today. If you build the foundations of a skyscraper, you cannot then build a different skyscraper. You'd have to destroy the foundations to do that. With AI, you can't turn it off. People aren't going to turn off their email and their phones and the this and the that and the other to just reset the world for 10 years as we rebuild these things. It's completely unlikely. And even if we had consensus to do it amongst 99% of the world, there'll always be the 1% that won't do it for whatever their reasons, whether they're malicious, whether they want competitive advantage, whether they're a country that sees an opportunity to do this. So we are building the foundations for tomorrow. And therefore, it is vital for us to make those foundations represent as many people as we can. They're clearly the horror stories about, it couldn't recognize black faces. It misrepresented various things, but those are going to be baked in soon. And a fix at a later stage is never as good as considering it at the early stage. So everybody has a part to play, and supervision is really the most important thing now. We should not be letting the regulators just manage this, or the government say we're going to build their own. I was on a panel recently with someone who said, do you even know, this was about 6 months ago, do you even know what Sam Altman believes in? Do you understand what he's directing this company to do? What he says is okay to have an answer or not okay? And she said, well, that doesn't matter because the British government is building their own AI. And I said to them, what makes you think that's going to be any better? It'll probably be even worse. That is just putting the responsibility on someone else and saying it's going to be okay. And as you know, as well as I do, the impacts of social media in 2004, when Facebook came, it was great. By 2010, it was going to be the savior of the entire world. By 2020, it was a complete and utter disaster. That was like a baby lying in a crib. What we are building today is the crawlers. Tomorrow, we're going to be building the toddlers. Then we're going to be building the teenagers. You cannot stop these things. And the world we live in has another feature. As these technologies become smarter and smarter, they're going to be smarter than animals. And then you'll have the entire campaign. You can't turn them off because they have rights. And so we're going to be in the court, because people will do that. They'll say, you can't turn it off, it's got rights. And so we're going to be stuck in this quagmire of problems unless we do it today. We need to start today, Dinis. Everybody needs to understand what's being done, use these technologies different, and make every effort they can to ensure they're represented. And you mentioned EdenBase a lot. The reason I created EdenBase with Eric is we're a capitalist organization. We invest in companies, but we want to invest in those and direct those and work with those in an ecosystem to do the best we can for everybody else through a community approach. And one of the things that Stuart and I very carefully didn't do in the book was make an opinion about what the future should look like and what our opinion was. We didn't want to add another opinion. This is a call to arms to say your opinion, whoever you are in the world, is as equal as my opinion. You just need to get it out there.
Wise words, and I think I couldn't agree more.